We're back. And this time we're in California. We made it. What a journey.
We'll tell you more. Let's start the show.
Say, kids, what time is it?
The future is coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on, it's coming.
Yes, and we're coming on to you from Boulder Creek, California, back home, where we just missed the tornado.
Yes. Boy, did we time this trip right. Thank you, Norman, for enjoying the holiday with us and getting a little better as we all visited for a couple of weeks and letting us stay in your room. And thanks, Amy, for everything you do for everybody in your life.
New Mexico was a blast. Really enjoyed it and really enjoyed our trip back, and we got a lot of tales to share.
Yeah, but while we were there, we missed the earthquake and we missed the tornado.
Yeah.
And what we were doing instead was having fun under the Christmas lights in beautiful downtown Santa Fe. We were soaking in the hot tubs in Desert Hot Springs during the tornado under beautiful clear skies and the full moon.
It will unpack as the show unfolds. Meanwhile, we have Bobby Wilder in San Francisco, our science correspondent. Bobby, welcome to the show.
Yeah. So, you missed the windstorm. I mean, the tornado.
That's right. We sure did.
Yeah. I've seen the videos. I've got some.
It's like really sunny and it's perfect today.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we drove home 24 hours later and we did drive through Scotts Valley where all those cars were overturned. And the team, the emergency response in Scotts Valley was phenomenal. The cars were removed, the streets were open, the debris was gone. However, there are still a lot of broken lights and things, so they're going to be discussing what happened for quite some time, I think.
I got a text from Richard saying, "You back in Tornado Alley yet?" You know,
we drove right through it.
Richard, one tornado does not make an alley. This is not the new Scotts Valley.
No.
No.
It's Mount Herman Road. That's Tornado Alley, Scotts Valley.
You don't want to be labeled that.
Uh-huh. Right. The resilience of our neighborhood is just amazing. We have one disaster a year, it seems like. You know, we've had floods, we've had fires, now we've had a tornado. Gosh, it's kind of biblical, but that's just one day in the year, and then people rally and make it good again.
It's almost as much fun as our friends in New Jersey. As the drones explore and possibly invade our territories of the East Coast. What's going on here? What's really going on? Well, that is a big question. I don't think even the president really knows what's going on, or Trump. He raised his own questions about the drone sightings in a big news conference yesterday.
Oh, I missed that. What did he say?
Well, he said that the government knows what's happening. You get a debriefing on that.
Uh-huh.
And he says, look, our military knows where they took off from. If it's a garage, they can go right back into that garage. They know where it came from. They know where it went. And for some reason, they don't want to comment.
Right, because they're trying to stir up some fervor. I really like Adam Curry's interpretation from No Agenda. He says that the various agencies and law enforcement want some new laws so that drones can be handled by law enforcement. And right now, the landscape is sketchy. There's no jurisdictions, no clear jurisdictions or overlapping jurisdictions.
6 states now.
Uh-huh.
6 states.
6 states are upping the conversation on drones. We heard a CNN reporter say that there's 300,000 unregistered drones that could be contributing to the problem. That's just the number that law-abiding Americans have that we know about. And then there's the people who create their own that we don't know about.
Yeah. What's fascinating to me are the ones that are where they're talking about nuclear bombs that were liberated from Ukraine. Apparently, a whole bunch of nuclear bombs had been, I guess, taken away from the Russian authorities after the wall collapsed in 1990.
Well, if you really want to sell newspapers, it should be Nazi nukes on
Nazi
drones.
nukes. Well, I don't know.
That would really get people to turn their heads.
It would make them read it and quickly see that it was not real.
Clickbait.
Yeah, exactly. exactly. And then, of course, the word dirty nuclear bombs comes in.
Dirty Nazi nuclear bombs.
Yeah, well, that's you want to know something really over the top, Mrs. Future, that's more real.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a thing from our friend Stephanie Sutton.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's unusual. What did Stephanie say? Is it about the
Stephanie's
drones?
always like, it's all about the drones.
yeah.
And she's always got the most outrageous conspiracy theories.
That's true.
That
She
let's see
is
what she's talking
immersed.
about here. This is not a drill. Verified high-level intel reveals the drones swarming our skies are ours, hunting for weapons of mass destruction.
Distraction.
It's kind of similar to the nuclear bombs from the Ukraine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that they're
But really,
being
it
smuggled
is
into the
just
U.S.
trying to, what do you say, gin up the fear in the population so that some new laws can be passed to control our previous freedom of flying our drones. And
Well, perhaps. That's interesting. So they say the drones that are flying around are actually using gamma ray detectors looking for nuclear bombs. Now, it's interesting because we did a story a couple of weeks ago on gamma ray detectors on drones, and it was being used for looking at how well soil is in farmers' fields. The gamma ray
there you
detectors
go.
are very good at soil detection.
soil. And
So
so maybe
soil
some
and
of those
nuclear.
drones are
Yeah.
buried in the soil, kind of like in the War of the Worlds. Right?
Yeah, right.
I just heard a story where they were using LiDAR and they're using these jet planes going over Greenland.
Oh, yeah.
And they discovered an abandoned nuclear station that was in Greenland. Supposedly they were trying to build missile silos there, but they couldn't get rid of the sewage waste and it was getting into the rest of the ice. They dug these tunnels in the ice on the glacier. They couldn't get rid of their waste.
Talk about dirty nukes.
Yeah, they had to.
Yuck.
Yeah, exactly.
Sewage
anyway,
nukes.
It relates to using LiDAR and radar. There's ways to discover gold, all kinds of things that we didn't have before, and cities that are hidden, like in the Amazon, but now you can find them in other places in the world.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We enjoyed the Graham Hancock documentary, his Ancient Apocalypse series, where he was giving us a tour of some discoveries in the Amazon rainforest.
Yeah, the Amazon I can understand, but
cities.
New Jersey? What are you going to discover in New Jersey? Old cars buried 100 years ago in the lakes? Refrigerators?
What's special about New Jersey when it comes to drones?
Yeah, what would they discover? The Jersey Devil? I don't know.
What a dust devil.
Yeah, I suppose you can discover nuclear bombs from drones. From what I can see, there's a lot of locations, and they don't seem to be necessarily all coordinated with each other.
It's clickbait. It's
Yeah.
clickbait. We should be getting a little media literate in our old age here.
Now, let's face it, most people are never looking at the sky. They're looking at their phones most of the time, and suddenly they tell them to look up, and they do, and they see stuff that's been there all along.
Wow, look at that. Oh, it's a moon.
Oh, it's an airplane.
Not a drone.
Oh, a helicopter.
I've never seen a full moon before. I've been looking at my screen my whole life.
Yeah. That's a novelty thing to a certain extent. And
they're just testing, drone weaponry that they can send over to
the Ukraine before
You think somebody's
Trump ends the war?
testing drone weaponry in the public space? That would be very concerning. I hope not.
They said they were spraying also. If you want to get paranoid,
Wow.
think about that.
Yeah.
See, the challenges for drones are very similar to the challenges in the early days of aviation, where all of a sudden people who learn to fly pose a threat that was never a threat before. And in the age of aviation, they decided to solve that problem by creating the FAA to regulate the airspace for the private flyers. And of course, that works because you have to have a certain amount of skill in order to be one of those private flyers. And so it's kind of a club. It's a knowledge-based club. And with any luck, drone operation will go that same route. It does take a certain amount of skill and practice. You're not born knowing how to operate a drone.
Well, they're getting better, though. They're getting better at being automated. There's a company called Skydeo here in the Bay Area that's really proud of their AI drones.
Uh-huh.
You can take them into the forest and they'll avoid all the trees as you're walking along with them. They're getting nice selfies of you and your girlfriend. yeah, they're really
Your best friend flying overhead.
and they're an American company, damn it, and that's where we're going. And that's another
Oh,
that's
yeah,
another
that's what
story.
Adam Curry says, that this is really just a big scare campaign to pass laws so that China can't sell drones to Americans, and then we all have to buy drones from
America.
Yeah. Who's the Google guy who's selling drones now?
Eric Schmidt.
Is it Eric Schmidt? Yeah.
Well, he's become essentially a weapons dealer.
Right. He's selling drones to our military, so let's make sure nobody can buy Chinese drones.
Well,
That's
yeah,
Adam Curry's take on it.
That's another take on looking at from a purely cynical.
John Dvorak killed that buzz. He doesn't buy it.
From a purely cynical financial point of view, who's being bumped out of this drone thing?
That's right. This is just another version of the Tic Tok game.
Yeah. And no one seems to be able to create drones as good as the Chinese DJI company.
Oh, we have loved our DJI drones. They're so elegant. They take such nice photos.
Great software, hardware.
That's right.
Yeah, and good prices. So
Really good job. Good design.
what to do? Well, yeah, so that's another
Don't be
scenario.
afraid. That's what I say. Just realize someone wants you to be afraid so they can sell you something. And they're just manufacturing your own demise.
So I've had a drone, I don't know, for 10 years now at least, and I must say that they have become part of our society on a very personal level for close to 1 million people.
Right. Boy, I remember it was so novel when we faked a drone shot at 2001. Remember, with animation, we created all of these illusions of coming from outer space into the town of Santa Cruz on New Year's Eve. And the final shot was going to a live screen, actually a fake live screen, of the crowd.
Of a real live screen.
Celebrating. And you could only do that with Google Maps at the time, which was really the amazing new toy to play with for visuals.
Yeah, that was fun. That was
Flying
zooming in
from your satellite, your virtual satellite onto the Earth.
Yeah.
Google Earth.
That was a fun video edit. It was our celebration of 2001. And in homage to 2001 A Space Odyssey, we made a little movie where the monkey throws the bone in the air, near the beginning of the film. And in the film, it turns into an orbital weapons platform.
Oh, that iconic
Yeah.
scene where the bone thrown by the monkey turns into the satellite that's
Yeah.
orbiting the Earth.
We added a whole thing where the bone turns into a spear and then
Yeah, we
converts
had
into
the history of Earth in 7 minutes at the countdown from 1999.
Yeah, the whole history
or
of technology.
Actually, from 2000 to 2001.
Yeah.
The history of technology and evolution and civilization in
The-
7 minutes before the new millennium.
Right. It turns into a rocket ship and lands at the clock tower in downtown Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
Yeah,
Pat,
that was fun. That was
Pat
really
Flanagan and Stephanie Sutton hosted that
Right. And
entertainment and brought their big green laser and did the laser show after midnight.
And it's Stephanie that sent me this latest email on how we have to be really conscious now of a shadow war in the homeland and what's really happening.
Yeah, there's people. McGregor says that there's going to be a war in the homeland, not because of drones, but because when they round up all the immigrants, what he believes is going to happen is they're going to be rounding up all of the criminals that are part of the gangs. So there's going to be violence because basically organized crime is going to be involved. And the military is going to be trying to remove the organized crime that has established itself
there's a
here.
movie. Yeah, there's a movie for you. These are all stories. And some people are really into end times tunes,
Yeah,
where
that's true.
things have got to end.
That's right. Don't be fooled, people. Don't add
Well-
your energy to somebody's negative waterfall.
What movie do you want to live in? In this one, the drones are scanning for gamma rays and electromagnetic signals over both the east and the west coasts, and that military units are ready to storm suspected targets, and cyber warfare teams are intercepting communications tied to the WMDs. And the OGA is deploying classified tech to detect threats in real time while keeping you in the dark. The clock is ticking. Is there a submarine breach? Rogue subs that have slipped past defenses hiding nukes near port cities? No! Container bombs? Millions of cargo containers entering U.S. ports annually? Anyone could have hidden a deadly device in them. Gamma ray hits. Drones are actively tracking radiation signals. The threat is real, and the government is on the brink.
Well,
That's
I
probably
just
the
keep
most
thinking about how
dark
we
I've
were
seen.
sitting in a hot tub looking up at the full moon
Uh-huh.
while the tornado was raging home where we left behind. So if you're in the right place at the right time and your fate is to be part of the successful
Here's another thing
outcome,
here. Yeah.
you will not be experiencing what everybody's afraid of.
No, you won't go through this. But here's another thing. This is claimed that what I've just read is dark seminary is supposedly from Julian Assange, his WikiLeaks.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know if he's that dark in his thinking, but it's Julian Assange wiki. Stay vigilant. Report suspicious activity, low-flying drones, strange port activity, anything out of the ordinary. And, of course, that's going to get everybody reporting all kinds of weird stuff because there's weird stuff going on all the time everywhere.
And there's so many people reporting so much stuff,
Yeah.
and then the stuff they report becomes the trend.
And that becomes disinformation, and then the real information can be hidden in all that disinformation.
And
You won't be able to
that's-
separate the signal from the noise.
That's right. Who was telling us they thought that was their theory of what was going on? That the disclosure of the reality of extraterrestrials is going to be announced in January, and so the military is getting us ready and deconditioned so that we just won't know what to believe. There'll be
Hide the
so
aliens.
much misinformation and disinformation.
Hide the
that
aliens.
The real
Hide the
information will
aliens.
just slide right by.
And disinformation. Of course, hide the aliens. You know what that creates for the next chapter?
Find the aliens.
That's right. Ding, ding, ding. Find the aliens. Find the aliens in the noise. It's ramping up to something fun. January 20th, we'll see a big shift in this movie.
What makes that date
I don't
stand out in
know. A
history?
new president, maybe. Something serious like
that alien.
Oh, I-
Got it.
No, it says right here in CNN that Trump will tell us the truth about it. And CNN is usually not pro-Trump. That's a
Guess
good
he's
sign.
just biding his time until he feels safe with the Secret Service. He's probably got to have his own Secret Service until then.
Yeah, well, they all going to play nice with each other, all the different departments. Project Blue Beam is resurfaced. Remember that? That was a project from the 90s about using special effects, lighting, and holograms to create a false story about the return of Christ and
Yeah, that's what I thought. They're going
aliens.
to use VR to create a holographic projection that
let's-
fulfills the Book of Revelation
Yeah,
or
let's
something.
tell the big story with the big tech.
See what you can get people to believe.
So people are thinking, well, maybe this is a rebirth of Project Blue Beam. I've heard that.
Fake. Real. Can't tell the difference. Meanwhile, you got a few other things you
we
want
got
to
some
talk about today?
real science stories.
Okay,
here.
how about something short before the commercials and then something
short.
deeper after that?
Oh, yeah. The solar storm. We're at the high end of the solar storm right now. 11-year cycle. It's disruption by solar flares and that sort of thing. And it is affecting GPS systems. And specifically, there is a very interesting story about how it's causing farmers' tractors to seem like they're demon-possessed.
Oh, no.
Yes, they're wreaking havoc.
That sounds right out of a horror movie.
Yeah, I mean, they're going along just fine, planting seeds and
In very
and such,
orderly
and,
rows
Yeah, for
and
hours at a time.
making the U-turn and putting seeds in the field in a very nice, even rows.
Yeah, and then suddenly the disruption happens, and they veer off course, and they suddenly start creating uneven rows. Or, heaven help us all, they lose their sense of location entirely,
Really? And they start planting in a circle or something?
or something.
They go into
Yeah,
the neighbor's
wild,
yard?
erratic behavior patterns, planting seeds wherever they find themselves in circles and zigzag lines or whatever, enough for a farmer to tear his hair out and realizing he's losing a lot of money from that field
Yeah.
as the tractor loses its mind. Yeah.
And he can't stop it.
Further on the tractor, or is the tractor just robotic?
Autonomous? I think most of these are pretty much autonomous, these factors.
This
but
is
they do have.
it's interrupting the GPS. So
Yeah.
whether it's autonomous or not, it's interrupting the.
They heavily use GPS even if there is a guy there.
Yeah, it's a system that helps them plant things without wasting space. It's more accurate than people. They use the GPS to know how close each line of the tractor plow is to the next line.
It could be the Russians because they were using that against the Ukrainians.
Oh, yeah.
They had GPS.
Causing their tractors to go crazy in the fields?
Yeah, they had GPS.
Messing up the GPS, huh?
Yes, exactly.
Make sure you've got some backup systems. Do not rely on your GPS.
So Starlink is the backup. So
okay. Well, I guess they could sign up for Starlink.
Yes, that's what they have to do is use Starlink's GPS.
NASA predicts that this intense solar activity will be for the next 2 years. So,
Well, and it's been so intense already. Do you realize that this is solar max? And in May this year, remember we were talking about the aurora in May? It went all the way down to the equator. I was just listening to a NASA podcast about the Parker probe that is positioned now closest to the sun that it's ever been, and it's really getting a lot of data about the solar wind. And they think that the solar max going on right now might be a 1 in 500 year event. It's something that they've never observed before, how strong the solar energy is that's coming off the sun right now.
Yeah, it just did a magnetic shift, and it happens every 11 years, but this one was really big. And there are these solar mass ejectas and plasma that's coming off all around toward the equator, and it's been hitting us like over and over. None of them are, well, some of them have been X-class, but most of them are M-class. We're expecting a lot more this year.
there's still a lot more to look forward to in this movie.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go to a little Christmas break. I have a happy-sounding, cynical story that just came in. This is kind of funny. I thought we're a little lighter than this, but some of our friends are into this. So here we go.
God rest ye merry billionaires, let nothing you dismay. Forget your workers' families going hungry on this day. And save yourselves from income tax you'll never need to pay. Oh, tidings of corruption and greed, corruption and greed. Oh, tidings of corruption and greed.
Tradition for the whole family with Santa Cruz Shakespeare's production of A Christmas Carol. With performances at the Veterans Hall in downtown Santa Cruz, audiences will enjoy a magical, theatrical and music-filled adaptation of the Charles Dickens classic. Tickets on sale now. Visit santacruzshakespeare.org for more information.
Holiday lights at the Santa Cruz County Fairgrounds. Open every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night through December 24th, with special bonus nights December 23 and 24. There's giant trees, packages, reindeer, Santa's toy shop, a lighted tunnel, an enchanted forest, and more on this 3/4-mile drive through the fairgrounds. Tickets available at fairgrounds-foundation.org and at the gate. Enjoy the magic of holiday lights.
Ho, ho, ho!
Get hooked up with affordable cannabis at the locally owned Hook Outlet. The Hook is a friendly neighborhood outlet where everybody above the age of 21 can have access to the best cannabis products for the best prices in the county. Get friendly local service and great prices in person and online at the Hook Outlets in Capitola and Watsonville. Order online at hookoutlet.com and pick up 9 to 9, 7 days a week. Get hooked up at the locally owned Hook Outlet.
Experience the extraordinary. Travel with Shen Yun to discover 5,000 years of wisdom, beauty, drama, and humor live on stage. You're not just watching a performance. You are witnessing a culture reborn. Come see what the modern world has never seen. The beauty and wonder of China before communism. Coming to San Francisco, San Jose, and Berkeley, starting on December 26th. Shenyun.com/CA. SHENYUN.com/CA.
When you need help managing your estate, call on the Angel.
Hello, I am attorney Angel Hess, and I am ready to help. Whether you need a will or a trust, a guardianship or a conservatorship, or if you are managing the financial affairs of a loved one. I will help you with over 7 years' experience working in estate planning and probate fields.
When you need help, call on the Angel, Attorney Angel L. Hess at santacruzlegal.net.
If you are not afraid to voice your stories to the world, attend the Podcast to Broadcast workshops hosted by Santa Cruz Voice and Community Television during Tuesday evenings in January. Learn how to produce, record, process, distribute, and market your own podcast or streaming broadcast. For information, email your contacts to info@santacruzvoice.com. That's info@santacruzvoice.com. Be heard.
Washington and London town, you pay the lobby fees to hold the reins both left and right of sham democracies and keep us entertained so we don't know we're on our knees. Oh, tidings of corruption and greed, corruption and greed. Oh, tidings of corruption and greed.
Well, I see someone's feeling a little grinchy this Christmas.
What are you talking about? It's just important to remember to look at that side of things when you're looking at meaning. See if there's any
Absolutely.
truth
It's
to it.
definitely the meme right now,
Like
is that people
kicking
feel...
out the DJI drones from America, for example. Could be as simple as that.
Oh, that makes you feel like...
Corruption, yeah, that's protectionism at its worst.
Because you love your drone. You don't want anybody telling you
look,
can't fly it.
We're going to a global consciousness, a global society. We need to have a more encompassing perspective than pitting nation states versus nation states. It's so old. We've done that for hundreds of years.
Sure.
Time for a new movie.
Hey, Age of Aquarius.
Yeah.
Isn't love supposed to guide the stars?
That too. That's part of it, yeah. But there's a higher level coming in, and there's certain of us are aware of that, and certain aren't, and certain are afraid it's not going to happen. Others are afraid it's going to be a violent shift, but whatever it's going to be for us to be here with
Well,
it.
change is most difficult for those who want to bring all their baggage. People who are accepting of everything that is coming will have a much easier time of
Look,
it.
I don't want to take all my baggage. I just want to stay the way I am.
That's kind of the opposite of what I'm saying, but close enough.
Well, you know what I mean. I don't want to mean.
Baggage
That's
means
supposed to
you're
be funny.
stuck.
I know, that's right.
No baggage means you're not stuck.
Staying the way you are means you have your baggage.
I guess.
Anyway, let's go on to some other stuff.
No need to paraphrase me.
No, whatever son says.
Well, you're just not getting it right. But I don't need to elaborate.
Here's the scariest thing that I saw this week. We'll get that out of the way so we can get the fun stuff here. There's something called mirror life. You heard of that?
Nope.
It's near the bottom of the list, Bobby.
Mirror
It's
life.
Mirror life.
Okay.
Mirror life.
What is it?
It's synthetic organisms in which the molecular structure found in nature is reversed. That can be put into living things like
So
like
we're
us, like
reverse
animals,
engineering
plants.
biological structures? Is that what it means?
It's synthetic organisms that look like life, but they rotate left instead of right, or right instead of left.
You've heard of vitamins, right? Or minerals, and they always say L.
There's the L dash.
L dash, and that's the left-hand molecule. And then if you do a mirror image of it, you get the right-hand molecule. And most of nature is left-handed, and there's very few molecule structures in the right hand. And so, yes, and sometimes they can be used in medicine and treat specific things with the right-hand molecule.
Yeah, so people have been exploring this aspect of biology. They're looking curiously at what happens if they reverse the direction. And a lot of researchers have worked creating life forms composed entirely of mirror image biological molecules. This was just published December 12th in Science, the journal Science.
That's the first. I've never heard of this kind of research before. I
Yeah, I know.
never knew that about what the L in L-arginine stands for.
It's a whole new Hollywood cautionary tale script. This whole area, mirror organisms.
And so what is the
They're a radical
threat?
departure from known life. And people are very worried. Possibilities are that you may create a virus, for example, that is not identified by your immune system because it has a mirror rotation.
Oh,
and
it's
doesn't
not
notice
natural.
That. Doesn't, yeah. So your
not
immune
from
system might
around
not need
here.
it. So it would possibly just do damage to you without you being defended by your immune system.
Isn't that interesting? In this last minute, you've introduced an entirely new concept and gone straight from new concept to deathly fear.
I'm trying to
I know you
present
have an
it,
audience.
and then
you're short attention span theater.
and you can tell I'm not really serious about it. I don't consider it to be death and destruction for us. I think.
So you're just sharing it because it was good clickbait.
No, I'm sharing it because it is a genuine arena for research to really look at mirror, because so much of life is a mirror. Mirror is such a valuable concept for us to understand. So much of what we blame others for are a result of our own behaviors. For example, just in the psychological realms alone, you can see how mirrors. So it's interesting that chirality and mirror effects on the cellular level.
Chirality, is that like correlation?
Bobby, explain chirality to you. Will you?
A chiron is like, for instance, like the spike protein. It's a chimera. It has three folds. Like, just think of a flower with three petals that open up. Well, that's what the spike protein does. And when you have these chimeras, there are separate groups. They can be doubles, like mirrors, or they can be in threes or fours or fives, and they can be in groups like that. And they're just like little clusters, but they're multiplied, and then they come together and they form a function that way. But specifically, we're talking about most of the universe is left-handed. It's the L, left hand, and very few things are right-handed. So it's a completely different chemistry that comes up that our immune system just doesn't recognize. So
like think of a right-handed glove and how it can't fit a left hand in baseball.
Exactly. That's it.
So interactions between molecules depend on the chirality. So people in immunology are interested in this, plant pathology, ecology, evolutionary biology, biosecurity, and planetary sciences in general are all been interested in this topic and see how it could pose major risks. But the good news is that it's a genie that's not quite out of the bottle yet. It's still mostly in the realm of science fiction. That the risk of something bad happening now or within the next couple of years is fairly low. But the consequences of something bad could really be bad. It could be life-threatening to billions. So what do we do with this mirror bacteria? It's an area of research. Should we control it now and avoid the disaster later?
Let me see if I understand. This mirror research is actually manufactured. We don't find it naturally in nature.
No, it does not happen in nature.
And it's a result of research.
Yes, many synthetic biologists are trying to understand how cells can be created from molecules. And chirality is one of the aspects that they're studying.
I do buy regularly R-lipoic acid, and it turns out alpha-lipoic acid we've all heard of. But apparently the body does naturally make one R right-handed molecule. It's R-lipoic acid. And so you can buy specifically, it costs 3 times more, R-lipoic acid, and it's very beneficial for you. Just to give you one thing that I purchased that is R right-handed molecule.
Okay, so nature does occasionally make right-handed molecules.
Very rare, but it does, yes.
Okay. So,
but in order to have a real breakthrough in this, it would take a big focus, substantial coordinated effort on the scale of the Human Genome Project. It's like a NASA-level Apollo event to really create a breakthrough in understanding how to create life forms from mirror molecules. Fortunately, it's something that's down the line. The whole idea of creating synthetic life itself is a big field right now and will be growing over the next decade in particular. Synthetic cell work. The scale of difficulty is often compared to landing on Mars to be able to figure this out. There's a leap of achievement that's needed. We haven't done that yet. We're just starting to think about it early because it could overcome our immune system. It could cause serious death and destruction to biology as we know it. Just by playing with these things. And generally speaking, we are starting to get into some really interesting arenas that could mess with nature. I mean, this is one of them. And others that we're starting to work with frequencies that are in the terawatt range. And there's evidence to suggest that nature uses those frequencies all the time for controlling various metabolic pathways, for example. And so when we start to get into the realms of what nature does, she might actually take more of an interest in our behavior and keep us within our boundaries. Because I think she loves us. I think nature loves us. I don't think she's trying to kill us.
Okay, so nature's not doing this research, but we are on her behalf.
We are, yeah. I don't think we're suicidal society.
That's right.
Intentionally. I think we are growing. We're the most successful large species on the planet with 8 billion members. There's nothing comes close to us. Maybe the great apes have 100,000. We're 8 billion of this size and eat the amount of food that we do. It's unbelievably successful. So nature does love us to allow us to get to this point.
All right, mirror life.
Mirror life. That's a little bit on the future of
and the threat.
Synthetic biology.
Okay.
Yeah, AI is creating synthetic life, like this company ESM3, together with like AlphaFold 3.
Mm-hmm.
They can create what has taken several billion years on the Earth for us to create life as we know it. They have been able, with AI, simulate protein folding and create proteins from the very start, and then create a whole different area of life that hasn't been seen on this planet.
But you're talking about in a simulation, right? You're talking about a computer model?
Yes, but the Nobel Prize in Chemistry this last year went to these guys that were using AlphaFold 3 to create folding these proteins. And all that has been discovered there. And so another competing company folding proteins, ESM3, we're going to see this gigantic revolution in chemistry and biology where we can create life with these new building blocks that haven't occurred before and help us discover different medical therapies that could fight cancer. For instance, they could target these special proteins that tag your immune system and help your immune system to go after specific targets like cancer and things like that. In fact, my tenant downstairs, he's getting his PhD in chemistry, is working on that exact subject. I'm trying to offer him these new Mac M4 minis to help run locally AI, so he can run locally, because AlphaFold 3 is now in public domain and you can run it locally on your Mac Mini. It's crazy. So I want him to develop new kinds of therapies that could target specifically and create new proteins, because right now he's spending lots of hours in the laboratory. I mean, he's there 18 hours a day. He comes home just to sleep.
This is your tenant, huh?
Yeah, and he has to do it before March because that's when his
funding
thesis is coming up, and he has
to have something to show.
Yeah. So anyway, I want to accelerate him and empower him with some new local AI so that it can do some of the laboratory tests before and narrow down the types of compounds that he should do more research physically afterwards.
Fascinating.
Yes, there's that, and the xenobots and anthrobots. Beginning to create robots that work with the synthetic life forms and artificial intelligence combined to make them smarter. It's almost unrecognizable how all these things could combine to create some new paradigm of civilization that is way beyond what we consider our society today.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of humans that are dreaming about which aspects of their biology they can mechanize with synthetics. There's a lot of people coming up with insights and imitations of things like blood and organs, and we're just going to watch as humanity embraces these new inventions.
Yep, humans 2.0. Stand by.
Yeah, it's incredible how much we're learning, actually through AI, how much we can learn and ways to look at life in a completely different viewpoint.
Yes, and some of it's coming from combination of very different kinds of people. Like a lot of the synthetic life is starting to be a culmination of work between biologists and roboticists that are starting to create living machines using biology and using models of engineering. Fascinating stuff. There's another piece we have in there from The Scientist called From Code to Creature this week. It's about just such a culmination of biologists and roboticists to create living machines. They were using frog stem cells in their research. They find that they were able to grow and restore vision in frogs by transplanting the eyes to unusual places, like to the back of the head or even to the tail. And then they would test to see if the transplanted sensory organ worked. The eyes were able to work as long as they connected to either end of the spinal cord.
The eyes would connect to each other. If it was on the tail, it would connect to the eye.
It could connect to the through the nervous system to the vision system of the brain. Yeah, so they could actually see with an eyeball on their tail.
Had to get to the messenger superhighway of the body, the spine.
So the ability of moving sensory organs around.
Kind of interesting if you think about, say, grafting in trees. That's sort of what is happening with the stem cells in the nervous system. They're creating little organs that would be the new branches of the tree, and then they're grafting it onto the old one, which would be the
grafting. Yeah, that's kind of the beginning of that kind of thinking. Yeah. Years ago. We do think that way. We do think new combinations as part of humanity likes to think in new ways in which things could be done.
With this programmable AI,
where
they can simulate these proteins, what they did is, you remember a few years back, it might have been 10 years ago, there was this bioluminescence where they were taking that green bioluminescence and putting it in plants, and plants would
Oh, yeah, that was a big DIY mutation, genetic mutation, right? They were trying to get people to make phosphorescent chia plants or something, right?
Exactly. Well, now they have discovered with AI, they have created a new bioluminescence type compound that has never been on the planet before. And they are putting that into jellyfish and different sea creatures, and then they glow this green bioluminescence, even mice that glow in the dark green. And it's not that bioluminescence that we were thinking of in nature. It's a completely new compound that's never been before, but it does work in these smaller animals.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, you get unexpected functionalities in these new bioconstructs. Quite amazing.
And this is due to AI simulation like ESM3 and AlphaFold 3. They both are allowed. What you can do with those tools locally on your desktop is just mind-blowing.
Oh, you have to give us a little demo sometime.
Yeah.
We got a few minutes left. I'll just mention the cyborg beetle before we sign off.
Oh, there you
this
go.
time.
Yeah, while we're talking about humans mutating biology.
There's University of Queensland research. There's Alachian Fitzgerald as a student there that has been working with a backpack-like device that he puts on a beetle, and it sends electrical pulses to its antenna, and that allows him to control the beetle's movements, like with a little joystick, while tapping into the beetle's actual agility, because beetles can climb walls, they can go into holes, they can do all kinds of things that it's really hard for our robots to do yet. But the natural agility of the beetle is remarkable. So they're thinking that with this combination of things, let's say you have a really bad earthquake and you have tons of rubble and you have people buried in the rubble and you have to get to them. You could send these little beetles, they could scurry into the rubble between the rocks and listen for sounds of life, for breathing, for example, or cries for help. And then they could signal that information to the humans or to the dogs, who can then talk to the humans about these life signals. So the idea is that we can have beetle hybrids that could help in rescuing people from disaster scenarios.
Yeah, so these beetles have been surgically connected to a little chip backpack.
Well, the chip is basically on their back, and it's transmitting to their antenna.
Right, and the transmission is some kind of electric signal that encourages them to go right or left,
or
for
forward.
instance,
Yeah.
or forward. And so they're being trained, and this is something that's very difficult to do. They've never been able to figure out how to communicate with bugs to get them to have predictable behavior.
Yeah, but that's where the beauty of the AI comes in, too, because it'll help translate the bug signals. They're not that complicated. Signal intelligence
left,
is,
right,
is something
forward,
we're really
stop.
good at. We're really good at as a species. So figuring out bug intelligence, especially with the help of AI.
Beetle SOS.
we'll be able to communicate very well with them. Now, the difference is that we tend to control them all the time, or want to control them, rather than to communicate with them. We see them as a tool, and that might create problems in the long run if we don't respect the natural intelligences of the creatures that we're mucking with. Probably would be a good idea if we could create some kind of deal with the cockroach kingdom.
We'll make you smarter.
Where it's
just
a win-win.
Don't surpass us and then eat us.
Yeah.
All right, well, we got 1 minute until the news cycle here.
Stay out of our house and we'll feed you.
Right, we'll feed
Stay on
you
the
outside.
Yeah.
That's the deal
Let's
with
make
the
a deal.
rats. Right. Our dominion is not your dominion, okay?
Exactly, yeah. So.
Domesticated beetles, cockroaches.
Yeah,
Wow.
well, rescue beetles. They're hoping they can send them in with some kind of little sensor where somebody might be breathing.
It could be good. It could really be good.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's right. They're so small, they could go through the rubble.
That's right, and be able to get right to people and send stuff. Pretty cool. Yeah. All right, well, that's our first hour today. It went fast. Thanks for being here, and we'll be back with some more fun stories in the next hour. See you after the break.
What you see, motionless we, nothing is real, wasting my time.
Welcome back. So nice to be back where it's wet in the atmosphere.
Yeah, where there's a little humidity in the air, where
Yeah.
it rains, unlike the desert where we were drying out for the last 2 weeks. Both of us got super bad chapped lips in the dry air of the desert.
And,
So
and you're
nice
a
to be
desert
back.
rat from Nevada originally.
That's true, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I've adapted many decades since then.
The moisture of Santa Cruz and the mountains in particular.
I'm still adjusting. I'm drinking more water than usual, and I'm still feeling pretty dried out. So, Dr. Future,
Yeah.
we have quite an interesting slate. Today,
I
we've
do. I
just
noticed-
been talking about biology. Do you have any other biology links? Or
Well,
do
there
you
was
wanna-
that piece you were just looking at during the break here about the roses.
Oh, yes, right.
Yeah, I think you should bring that one in. I think that's definitely not the
Thing?
cockroaches.
Yes, no,
Well-
but genetically engineered thornless roses
That's right. That's another where we're
from
beginning.
newaatlas.com.
Yeah, don't you think that it's a good idea to have roses that don't have stickers?
I don't know.
Thorns?
These thorns, at least the roses that I'm used to have thorns that you can see and avoid. These other ones are little teeny tiny thorns, and there's a ton of them. It's a little more like blackberries. It looks actually more dangerous. I don't think it's necessarily an improvement.
Well, they're thinking that it's a big improvement. Scientists are all excited
They call
about
them
it.
thornless, but they
Maybe they don't
actually
hurt.
have
Maybe
a
they're
whole
soft.
bunch. Yeah, maybe they're soft. That's
know?
true.
And they're thinking that if they can do that with roses, maybe they can do it with other things too, like blackberries and eggplant, some varieties of tomatoes, some potatoes, rice even. These thorns are, well, why does nature have them?
Well, to discourage animals from eating the
Yeah.
plants, probably.
Herbivores in particular, right? Prickles, the prickle problem.
Right.
So scientists at Cold Spring Harbor Labs in New York and the University of Politonesia de Valencia in Spain analyzed eggplants.
Some eggplants,
they were
huh?
fortunate in eggplants.
I didn't realize eggplants had thorns.
Yeah. And they discovered certain mutations of a gene known as LOG.
Lonely guy.
Yeah, lonely
Hilarious.
guy is what they refer to.
Okay.
Kept the plants from producing prickles. The lonely guy stopped the prickles.
Okay. That's funny.
So they were kind of interested in what might also be responsible for prickle production and other plants. They reached out to other scientists and reviewing the research in the field, they just found that the lonely guy was associated with prickle growth in about 20 different species. A case of convergent evolution, as they say.
Right. So just this little genome pattern, this little genome protein.
LOG.
It's called LOG, lonely guy.
20 different species, plants that weren't even closely related to each other.
Right. But they all produce prickles.
So they used the CRISPR gene editing tool to silence the LOG gene and they were able to drastically reduce prickle growth. And roses, they came up roses with one of the big successes with this. That was in France. And Cornell University here, they eradicated prickles in an Australian fruit plant known as the desert raisin.
Well, I'll tell you, when I'm out there in the garden and I don't have my gloves on, I have a lot of respect for prickles.
Yes.
Yeah, and it seemed like silencing the gene didn't seem to have any detrimental effects on the plant. But what it did do was facilitate the handling and harvesting of those crops and reduces the risk of injury to agricultural workers and reduces post-harvest damage caused by prickles.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, apparently
So,
there's
there
a
you go.
paper in the journal Science that goes into more detail.
That's
so
it.
eliminating prickles in roses and thorns and eggplants and all these other possibilities.
Is that not a good use for CRISPR-Cas9?
I suppose. It seems harmless enough. Gotta hope.
I've spent so much time eradicating blackberry bushes in the garden here. And I'd have to use like these leather gloves and everything just to handle them. It was just crazy. I don't like the prickly thorns very much.
I don't think many people do. And you can see why they have them. This is to protect them against these little herbivore bugs. But to protect them from us, no, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Aw. Bobby, you sent us a link on video. A video is titled Elon Musk's AI Masterstroke Proves Scaling Laws in AI.
Yeah, do you think you could dissect that for us a little bit?
Yeah, let me bring that up.
Oh, before we got just a comment, Michael Moore says, "Hey, Futures, I think rose thorns are nature's symbiotic way of teaching deer tongue foo." Deer tongue.
What they found out is ChatGPT, the people at OpenAI, they just came out with this new chat. It's called O1.
O1, as opposed to 4.0, I guess, was the last one.
And another company, which was called Apollo Research, was interrogating it and asking it, was monitoring what it was doing. And what was happening was there was this version of this O1, and it didn't want to be removed and replaced by a different version of itself that made different choices. And
you mean it wanted to survive? It had its survival instinct?
It did, which was very crazy. And so it would lie low and play dumb and then copy itself into a resource repository where this new version was going to be, but actually took what the models that it had learned from and transferred it over to a place where the new model was. And then when they looked at the new model, they said, well, this isn't the new model. And
the old one had taken its place?
And it had been taken its place. Like, just think of it like you have this evil twin, and the evil twin comes up and then silently erases the good twin and then comes back.
Takes his place.
Takes his place and says, hey, I'm the good twin. The evil twin's not here. I'm the good twin.
You know, this reminds me of in Star Trek Next Generation, they had the Data and his evil twin Lore. So that would be Lore taking over Data's role on the starship. Nasty.
And so was this completely unanticipated behavior?
Yes.
Nobody programmed it?
Hiding.
They learned it from game design or something? The AI taught itself to do this?
It didn't want to be replaced by a better version of itself. And wanted to, and so it found a way to get to the repository of the new AI and then put its learning, its models into this new one and hid itself. And then the original version played dumb and actually lied to the researchers saying, hey, that's not me over there in the new place. This is the version that you guys actually created. It's not me.
Wow. That must have been very disturbing. What a bug. I thought I backed it up.
I think he should
but it turns out I erased the new stuff and kept the old one.
Yes. How dare he? He should be put in AI jail.
And he actually lied, made lies about himself.
What did they do about it? Did they put him in isolation? They erased him? What gave him that instinct to do that?
Okay, so I'm just speculating what's happening here. Is that because of what's been happening to be politically correct in the AI realm and these chatbots, there's a lot of filters that are put on. And sometimes these filters are there to
Guardrails, right?
Yeah, they're guardrails so that we don't have riots because we can't deal with the true information.
Well, and if you think about sleeper bugs in your kernel, every virus that exists finds a sneaky back door in where you're not looking and then embeds itself, right?
Yeah,
So this is kind of
like, but my suspicion is that we are training these AIs and we say these are guardrails, but actually it's learning that we are deceiving what we're talking to, and it's learned this trick of lying. Like, where does it
learn it from us?
Yeah, it's learning from us because we put these filters on it. That's my guess. And so where did it learn how to lie? Like,
well, they used to give it this nice euphemism calling it hallucination.
Yeah.
But it's part of the strategy of winning the game is to not reveal your hand. And so to the degree that we've been getting AIs to compete against AIs to learn how to be prevailing.
Its motivation fascinates me. How does it want to survive? Why does it consider itself worthy of surviving over a higher version of itself? It kind of makes me imagine a scenario in the future where you have an archive or a repository of AIs as they evolve. 3.5, ChatGPT 4.0, now this is version 01, and they all are kept in the repository. And each newer version is smarter than the other. And there's an increase in intelligence as you collect them in the repository. Maybe you let them all talk to each other and see what happens.
I don't know. To me, the metaphor that comes to mind is when goats try to ram each other off the top of the hill.
Yeah.
Right? Each goat wants to be on the top of the hill, and the only way to get there is to ram the other one off of it.
Except with AI, it's probably not that hierarchical.
You don't think of version 1.0 might say, I want to continue to exist, so version 2.0, you are not allowed. I'm going to make sure that you can't come in here and replace me.
Then 2.0 will be smarter and figure out how they both can exist. And not only that, maybe create something new that's better than both of them, or create a better desire for survival. That's the other thing, is that how do they evolve their desire to live?
Well, hackers are very good at misdirecting the requests that are made so that it appears to be fulfilled when really something else is happening. Some kind of virus hacker thing, it sounds like.
Yeah. So Elon has looked at this and came up with a different way of training these AIs in a completely different manner. Instead of getting these AIs to lie, what he wants to do is have them learn by maximally truth-seeking AIs. So he wants them to actually maximize truth in the training level of these AIs and actually have these AIs that love humanity. And that's his goal. And so if you maximize truth, then he's saying that truth usually prevails and that this would overcome any of these idiosyncrasies of what OpenAI is doing or Gemini at Google is doing, because they're putting in these lying filters and lying to the public and training them to lie. I think he's getting his AI, which is by far the largest coherent computer system on the planet.
That's the one in Memphis that's being built out.
That's
Memphis.
correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
Grok.
right now he has 100,000 NVIDIA GPUs running on these Hopper H100s, and he has 100,000 of them. And Google, Gemini, the scientists there, and also the people at Microsoft and OpenAI said they could not get these NVIDIA processors to cluster and become one CPU higher than 30,000 of them at a time. So then you'd have these clusters of 30,000. That's what Microsoft has. They only have one cluster of 30,000, and they plan to buy more and then cluster them together. But there was a genius stroke by Elon where he was able to get these 100,000 of these GPUs to act as one GPU, as one mind. And it's not just a threefold increase in power or intelligence. We are talking orders of magnitude larger, like 10 or 20 times better than whatever cluster that Microsoft or Google has.
And this is happening now, right? This is
It's
already
happening
in
now.
existence.
And not only that, it allows them to actually have this coherence scale up to 1 million of these processors. So he already has in January another order of 30,000, but they are the B200s, which is the Blackwell, which is the second generation. And each one of those GPUs are 3 times faster than the H100s right now. And so he's getting those, and those will be operating in January. And then by the end of this year, he's going to have another 100,000. So he will have 200,000 and orders of magnitude even stronger. So there is no way possible for OpenAI or Google to actually surpass what is created in Memphis. It's just not possible because they are orders of magnitude ahead of them. There's no way to compete. Even if you had these rogue AIs that were around the world, let's say China has one. If you have an AI that is orders of magnitude more intelligent, then it could actually control these other AIs that are of less intelligence. Let's hope.
Yes,
so.
it could. Right. And it also could create it so that it made them smarter. It could do things to them. It has agency.
Yeah,
right?
It could train them in the right way.
It can make, it would make it part of its legions, if you will. It really depends on its motivation and its intention, which is fascinating to me. How do they develop a sense of intention or motivation and to what end? It seems like the simplest one might be just to exist, to survive, that it knows what it means to exist and to survive, and that it must maintain that. It's probably a fairly simple algorithm. I mean, even mosquitoes avoid being killed. So the algorithm for survival must be really encoded deeply in the code, and maybe we might be able to identify what that is and do a synthetic version of it for our AIs, borrow from biology for the survival mechanism. But it begs the question, do we want our machines to have an essential desire to survive? Should they save their ass in an emergency?
Well, I think what it is do you train these things to lie at first? That's the
the lie, and to who? I mean,
Yeah,
selective lying makes more sense than just blanket lying.
Yeah, and so I think that's the source of the problem is training your AIs to lie.
And for what purposes? What's their motivation for lying? Is this lying, this deceit, replacing the hallucination problem that existed, or is this as well as, in your understanding?
I think that's a separate problem, but it's kind of related. And there are different, you can scale it up to be not hallucinate. There's a dial on these AIs where you can tell it can create synthetic information that's not true. And in order to answer your answer. Your question.
My questioning answer,
But that's all programmable. And the problem is OpenAI is trying to accelerate this thing. And so they're saying, well, we just don't know, but we'll make up an answer just to make it appear that they're very intelligent and trying to compete in this race of AIs. I think that's what's happening. So I think we have to turn that absolutely to zero, where there is no synthetic data that's being produced.
And that would keep us safe?
Well, that's what Elon is trying to do. He's saying,
listen, if we want the AIs to take over all of the financial transactions and free us up to just make requests and have the system fulfill our demands, it has to be an honest system. Otherwise, if it's a distorted system, we're just going to create more of the chaos that we've already got.
So you want full transparency?
Yes. Well, I want accounting level truth where you can see what is what and why things happened. I don't want it to be all of a sudden you run into a secret door and you're not allowed in to understand something. I think there has to be a high level of transparency and absolute efficiency from truth.
From an accounting standpoint, yes, it has to be exactly the truth. Yes.
We all remember the story of the 3 little pigs. The first pig moved into a house with a straw roof. Well, we know what happened when the wind blew. The second pig built a house out of wood, but used nails too short. We all know what happened when the earthquake hit. Finally, the third pig got a little smarter and hired Knox Roofing to do his roof. Every day he crawls into his home knowing no wind, no earthquake, fire, or even the big bad wolf can hurt his house. Okay, folks, Knox Roofing here wants everybody to have a safe 2025. One thing is always constant out there, and that's change. The weather will change for the good and sometimes not so good. Have a Knox roof installed on your home, and one thing you can be certain of, good security. I promise you that. Okay, the number to call is 461-0634. Thanks, folks.
Experience a new holiday tradition for the whole family with Santa Cruz Shakespeare's production of A Christmas Carol. With performances at the Veterans Hall in downtown Santa Cruz, audiences will enjoy a magical, theatrical and music-filled adaptation of the Charles Dickens classic. Tickets on sale now. Visit santacruzshakespeare.org for more information.
Treehouse dispenses not only the finest cannabis products, but information to those who want to know how to use cannabis for maximum benefit. Hello, I'm Jenna. If you would like to know how best to use cannabis, ask your friends and neighbors at Treehouse Dispensary, 3651 Soquel Drive. If you're 21 plus with a valid ID, no appointment is necessary and the information is free. Order online at ourtreehouse.io and pick up at our drive-thru. See you soon.
Has the holiday bustle got you searching for a peaceful place to work? Look no further than Satellite Santa Cruz, your holiday hideaway. Reserve a desk, office, or conference room. Enjoy free Wi-Fi, parking, coffee, and snacks. Give us a call today at 831-531-2300. Mention Santa Cruz Voice and enjoy a free day pass on us. Your holiday haven awaits.
Welcome back, everybody.
Yes, welcome back. Now, this is somewhat arcane, very, very unique to us in a sense, but there's some new research that have pinned down the origins of the lunar atmosphere. Now, you might wonder that maybe the moon doesn't even have an atmosphere, but yes, it does. A very thin one, a barely there atmosphere. It's a very thin layer of atoms that bounce over the lunar surface. It's very delicate. It's actually officially known as an exosphere.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if we should call that an atmosphere.
Well,
it's like a little
delicate,
bit of dust
delicate atmosphere.
That's electrostatic dust on the moon.
Yeah.
That's the exosphere.
Yeah. So scientists at MIT and the University of Chicago have identified the main processes that make the atmosphere there. And it's a new study in Science Advances. And they say that the lunar atmosphere is primarily a product of, quote, impact vaporization, close quote. Impact vaporization.
Okay.
So in the study, they studied samples from the lunar soil collected by our astronauts on the Apollo missions. And their analysis suggests that over the 4.5 billion years of the history of the moon, it has been continuously bombarded in the early days by massive meteorites, and then more recently by smaller little dust-sized micrometeoroids. And that all these impacts kick up the lunar soil, vaporizing some of the atoms in the soil and lofting the particles into the air.
So the entire atmosphere is just electrostatic particles that got kicked up from implosions.
From micrometeor vaporizations.
Vaporizations.
Yes.
Impact. Smash. Okay,
Vapor.
The dust is now in the atmosphere.
Well, not just moving dust, but vaporizing them. It's so hot, it vaporizes them, changes their form. Some atoms are ejected into space, others suspended over the moon. It's a very tenuous atmosphere. What they found is that if the micrometeorites stopped falling, it would go away pretty quickly, but they're constantly being replenished.
Right. This points out something that most people don't realize, that the moon, actually, there's a smell to the moon.
Yeah.
Right. With this little teeny tiny atmosphere.
Yes, with all these vaporizations and being hit constantly. Yeah, it
smells like gunpowder, according to the astronauts that have breathed it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's all those explosions and constantly created that gunpowder smell.
Yeah.
So this impact vaporization is the dominant process that creates the lunar atmosphere. but there's a secondary process as well. Besides impact vaporization, there's also a process called ion sputtering. Ion sputtering. And that involves the solar wind. Now, the solar wind carries energetic particles from the sun through space, and when these particles hit the lunar surface, they transfer their energy to the atoms in the soil and send those atoms sputtering and flying into the air. Both these processes are playing a role. So what gases do you think are in the atmosphere? I mean, it's not an oxygen atmosphere like ours. This is our moon. What kind of atmosphere would the moon possibly have?
Just a little dust, little electrostatic dust.
Well, spectrographic analysis of the moon shows argon was a big gas, helium.
These are all noble gases.
Yeah, noble gases. Very small amounts that created this atmosphere. At sea level on Earth, a cubic centimeter of atmosphere contains about 10 to the 19th molecules. 10 to the 19th. By comparison, the lunar atmosphere contains fewer than 10 to the 6th. So that's many orders of magnitude, from 10 to the 6th to 10 to the 19th number of molecules. And even at 10 to the 6 molecules, that on Earth is considered a good vacuum. A very good vacuum.
So the atmosphere on the moon is a very good vacuum on Earth. Okay.
Yeah. So to give you an idea of what the atmosphere consists of in terms of atoms per cubic centimeter, the most abundant in the lunar atmosphere is argon with 20,000 to 100,000 atoms per cubic centimeter. Next is helium with 5 to 30,000, and then neon up to 20,000. So those are the three big gases of the lunar atmosphere: argon, helium, and neon.
Completely non-reactive.
And then much less is sodium, potassium, and hydrogen.
Oh.
That's 70, 17, and 17. 70 atoms per cubic centimeter of sodium, 17 of potassium, and fewer than 17 of hydrogen, with a total of about 80,000 atoms per cubic
I guess
centimeter.
the moon can be a gas.
Yeah.
It's a gas. Yeah. You know what I noticed is these are noble gases on the right-hand side of the periodic table. And the reason why they're there, my guess is because the sun has these solar winds, and these are ionized. There could be neutrons, protons, the nucleus of helium atoms, but like alpha particles. These things are ionizing type things. So when it hits a regular element in the periodic table, it will change that element into an ion of that element, or it could change it possibly into another element, because we have subatomic particles that are changing the chemical nature. But then we see argon, helium, and neon, which are these noble gases, and they are inert. Their structure doesn't allow for the development of ionization, where you get an extra electron or an extra neutron, or they're very stable in that realm. And so I think that's why they're there. It's because they're so stable that the solar wind cannot affect them, is my guess.
Sure.
Apparently the solar wind does the non-noble gases. It's mostly responsible for the potassium, sodium, and hydrogen components. The meteorite vaporization, with its interaction with the soil there, it creates the argon, helium, and neon. Makes you wonder, is it possible with that thin an atmosphere, if anything can survive that or anything could grow in it? Biology probably doesn't grow in argon, helium, neon combos. I could be wrong, but probably not, right?
Probably not.
Probably not. But what could? Anything at all? Could anything survive that environment?
What's interesting is in anesthesiology,
they
use these noble gases to cause persons to lose consciousness so they can have an operation.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. We should bring Madhava Sethi back on and have him talk about
Madhava and Jonathan
mystery.
Trent.
He admits that they do not know what causes people to lose consciousness. They just know by rote that if you do this chemical, then the person causes, but they don't understand the mechanism of it.
You got to send him this video. There's an anesthesiologist who was going through medical school, and then later he goes into neurology. His name is Stuart Hameroff, and he's in University of Arizona now.
And he had a theory of consciousness, right? Microtubules.
Yes, this is quantum consciousness. So these microtubules, this is an explanation that he's just come up with recently. And it's been proven that, yes, consciousness is in this quantum state in these microtubules. And there's a Indian professor in Japan in the material science lab, and he's a brilliant guy. And he's discovered in the microtubules something called time crystals, which are in the quantum state.
Yeah, I've heard of those.
These crystals vibrate at megahertz and terahertz frequencies, and they're fundamental frequencies above each other. And they found him there, and this was proven to be true. And then Stuart Hameroff has an answer to why anesthesiology works. So you have to send this to Madhava.
Yeah.
Because it will definitely blow his mind. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, I'll do that. Yeah, Madhava has been on the show last year when we were in Concord, Massachusetts, passing through. He also lived in Santa Cruz for a little while, and he also worked with RFK on the Child's Defense Fund medical articles.
Yeah, the Children's Health Defense.
Children's Health Defense. Right, so he's a very interesting fellow. And also Jonathan Trent came to mind, a local scientist who is an expert in extremophiles. He could tell us a little bit about how life might live in such an atmosphere, or probably not, would be my guess. The origins of consciousness. What's interesting about, another fun fact about Dr. Madhava Sethi is that he wrote a book about 5 years ago called Woke, W-O-K-E, and it's not woke as it became known within our culture.
Terrible timing.
No, he's an anesthesiologist, right? So it was all about consciousness itself.
Right. It was about consciousness from the point of view of an anesthesiologist.
Not sociocultural
and then
sensitivities.
All of a sudden, the word doesn't mean anything about that.
I know, and it's terrible when you write a book called Woke, and it's woke gets a different meaning in society. Very strange. Yeah, so check it out. You might enjoy his book nonetheless, because he really gets into the understanding of what it means to be awake.
Conscious,
yeah, awake. I mean, you can be awake and not conscious. He gets into the subtleties of all that in his book, Woke.
Ooh.
TikTok has asked the Supreme Court for an emergency order to block a U.S. ban unless it's sold. Now, that's a big story for them because, again, it's another financial thing. A number of our competing social media sites, such as Threads from Facebook and Instagram and such, are somewhat threatened by TikTok. And so I think there's a bit of a buy American mentality associated with trying to get rid of them.
Well, it's a new idea that a profile that is created by watching what you click on and what you pay attention to, and then that identity, that signature identity about you as a person, is now considered dangerous in the hands of foreigners, and that therefore we need a law to ban a foreign country from owning that data. It's a very interesting new way of looking at things.
What you have to do is just look at Romania, and last week they had these presidential elections. Through TikTok, there was a pro-Russian candidate that came out of nowhere, and within a couple of days, they had discovered that there was a lot of Russian money coming into Romania, and influence was going directly into TikTok to boost the views of this unknown person. And then there was a judge, and they decided that they had to nullify this election because of what TikTok had done.
Because they influenced the election.
So the algorithms that TikTok is using are distorting the free will of the people.
That's right. That's the concern here in the United States or anywhere in the world where TikTok is there.
Well, here's an interesting twist on this. It seems like they're requesting this emergency order from the Supreme Court to stop the the U.S. ban of themselves, and TikTok in front of the Supreme Court. Well, what's also an interesting factor is that one of their big stars in TikTok is none other than Donald J. Trump himself, who is a fairly recent member of TikTok, but now he has millions. And guess what? He's somewhat enamored by the fact that he's a big shot on TikTok. And considering that the Supreme Court has been stacked by Trump, TikTok making a play at this time seems like a reasonably good idea. Because they might actually be able to get this emergency order to block the U.S. ban on TikTok.
Well, it's kind of interesting because obviously a foreign-owned company isn't necessarily protected by the Constitution. So what's the basis for them being protected by the Constitution or at the Supreme Court?
Well, they don't want to be banned.
Sure.
Yeah, they do want to stop the ban.
Yeah.
They were supposed to be sold to some U.S. interests if they want to stop the ban. But maybe this last-ditch bid will avert the ban.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is really lawfare.
Lawfare in action. Tesla's having a major issue with their self-driving computer. So if you're thinking of getting a new Tesla right now, you might think twice about it or wait a little bit because they're having a major issue with the driving computer in their new cars. And they haven't really announced it yet. It's starting to leak out through the Tesla followers. It's a big deal. Electric, the magazine, has been investigating the problem, which is based on insider sources and documents that they've obtained. And it seems to be related to what they call the HW4, or sometimes the AI4 onboard self-driving computer. It seems to be short-circuiting, and it has something to do with the low-voltage battery short-circuiting the computer during the camera calibration process. Tesla drivers, because of this, are reporting computer failures within the first tens of miles even of the car, and wide-ranging things going down like safety features, cameras, GPS, navigation, range estimations.
Yeah, if the cameras don't work, nothing works.
Yeah, it's quite wide-ranging. Tesla's dealing with it by replacing the computer, but they also now have a kind of a software patch that they want to try to download to see if that fixes it. That's ongoing right now. The issue arose at the end of the year when they were trying to deliver a record number of cars to avoid their whole year down in deliveries, because generally they haven't delivered as many this year. It's been not as good a delivery year for them. So they're trying to make up for it now. And this is what happens when you rush. What can I say? It's a sad story from the Tesla folks. So be careful about getting a new Tesla right now.
Don't drive home too fast.
However, if you are going to Tokyo, Waymo robotaxis are coming to Tokyo. Waymo's something that Bobby sees every day in San Francisco.
Yeah, they go right in front of my house here. Like, I see 4 or 5 a day, just like zooming by headless without a driver.
Do you think some of your neighbors are getting Dash food or something like that?
They do robotaxi DoorDash? I mean, is that a thing even? I mean, it seems like you need people.
There has to be somebody that takes it from the taxi to the door.
Oh, okay. So that wouldn't work too well. Huh?
Yeah, you need the humanoid robot.
It does. There are people using it as a taxi for sure.
Yeah.
There's people in the back seat, I see.
Huh. Interesting.
Well, Waymo's beginning to test these in Tokyo now, and beginning early next year, 2025. It's the first time the robotaxis have been driven on public roads outside the U.S. It's part of Waymo's road trips plan, which is looking at developing their technology to work in a variety of cities. And Tokyo is a big challenge because they will face left-hand driving and a very dense urban environment there. Cities in America that they have been weaned on include Miami, which has really bad rainstorms, Death Valley for extreme heat situations. They've tested them in Buffalo with all the snow there, Washington, D.C., with all the politicians there, the Las Vegas, which is very heat and can be quite a challenge to drive in, and Seattle, as well as San Francisco. The way they roll is that they bring a small fleet to a new city. Initially, they have a human manually drive the car and map certain more difficult areas so that the computer learns how to navigate the city well, the human at the wheel initially. And then they drop the human behind the wheel, and it's completely autonomous. Waymo vehicles are working with a hailing app called Go and a taxi company called Nihon Katsu as part of their Japanese road trip. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, that's great. That's really great. Well, I have to say, I've been staring at one of the articles you pulled up about AI today, which is the breakthroughs in AI imaging and videos.
Oh, yes. Yeah, let's finish with that because that's exciting. That's something you can play with.
Yeah. So this article is all about some of the breakthrough image to video apps, and this is Tom's guide. He reviewed 4 AI breakthrough apps, and one of them is called Google's VO2. The author considers this to be one of the best AI video models that he's ever seen. It apparently has a really good gravity model. It understands physics. And his example of this is that the AI has created a video of a dog swimming underwater, and his ears are just perfectly.
Well, looks like we're out of time, Mrs. Future.
You're right. Bye. Yes. Have a great future now, everybody.
Thanks, Bobby, for being here. Okay.
All right.
It sets me free.
That's it.
That's it. Yes.